In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Let us pray for peace and justice. Last week it was also a week for the unity of Christians. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and in the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So we have a word to say rapidly on the ontological proof, or argument, that is proposed especially by Saint Anselm. Well, there are many ways to propose that. I will try to give one simply. I will try to simplify. We have an idea when we think about God, because those people, you see, we have an innate idea of God. So when we think about God, we think that God is the higher being, okay? And there is no higher being than God. No? If you think, when you think about God, can you think a being higher than God? No. So the idea of God being the highest, and there is no higher than Him, is a necessary being when we think about God. But if you think about God, thinking about God, God must exist. There must be nobody above Him. And that idea, does that idea come from your experience? No. He said, no, that idea is innate. So I have an innate idea that there is no one superior to God. So that idea proves, if you want, if I have that idea, an idea was put in me by God. God exists. I cannot have the idea of God without thinking about His existence. But that is argument, it is, we call the ontological, because we start from the being of God to prove the existence of God. We start from the idea we have of God, and we say, if I have that idea, and all my ideas are innate, that means that must be put by God, and God must exist. Because if God will not exist, I will not have that idea. You follow me? No.
No.
Well, you have an innate idea. I have an innate idea of God, the higher, and nobody is higher than Him. I have that idea. Yeah. That idea does not come from my experience. Therefore, it is an innate idea. Okay? But that innate idea must come from somewhere. You know? So, the unique solution, I say, there must be a God to put that idea in my mind. The idea does not come from me, must come from God. Therefore, God exists. If you want, the fact that I have the idea of God, as no higher being to God exists, God is a supreme being, that idea, because it does not come from my senses, it must come from God Himself. And therefore, if that idea comes from God Himself, He must exist. I cannot have the idea of God, the perfect being, without suppressing, taking out of Him the most important qualification of God. What is the most important perfection of God? To exist. So that is, we call the ontological argument. Of course, for St. Thomas and for me, myself, I cannot accept that argument.
Okay.
Because, you know, we saw that in fallacy, we studied fallacy, you remember? I use what I have to prove what I have to prove, you know? So I have an idea, and those idea is the same problem with Descartes. I have the innate idea of God, and using that innate idea of God, which is superior, etc., I conclude to this necessary existence. I conclude that. But is it very good? That's the problem. When I think innate, that is the logical order. And there is an ontological order, the order of being. Can I pass from the logical order to the ontological? Can I pass from the order, if you want, the real order, the order of being? Can I pass, for example, the idea of a mountain made with diamond, a mountain made with gold, and to the reality of mountain with no. We cannot accept to pass from the logical order to the, or except God. Because when God thinks, He makes it. He produces it, He creates it. But we cannot say that. It is not because I think I have my cap and gown today that I have finished my studies. I have graduated. No, the planning is not the realization. Thinking is not the realization for us. Of course, if we go and put that in God,
I'm so sorry for the intrusion.
no problem.
But yeah. Okay.
Okay, we can.
Thank you. Bye.
It's a mechanical problem. I have to fill the tank because when it is cold, my tank is almost empty. I have problem after that. That is a real problem, not logical. Okay, so that is the remark with the criticism we do. To Saint Anselm, to Descartes, even to Saint Augustine, the idea of God. You know, they say, I have in my eye, I have the innate idea. Who put that? God, or the good magician, according to Descartes. Okay, but I use that idea put by God in my mind to prove that God exists. It is a circle, vicious circle, or petition principle, a petition of principle. Okay, but I will not insist on that. But why? We can say why Saint Anselm, doctor of the Church, Saint Augustine, and Descartes use that. Because if already you believe in God, you accept that very easily, you know? If God for me exists already, He's a reality. I think about God. God exists. And if God exists, He exists by Himself, and there must be nobody, no being greater than Him, you know? But that idea is not innate for us. That idea is acquired. Is not innate. That is the difference. That ontological proof of God is for those who are idealists. Those who think that my ideas are innate and that God is the one who assures the value of my idea. Okay? And so on page 11 you have a long explanation from Father Tonard. By the way, Father Tonard is a French Assumptionist, wrote a very good book in history of philosophy. And we have that in the library. So if ever you have to make a paper, a search on history of philosophy, Tonard is excellent. Why? Because at the end of his book, he put many themes, and he gives you all the references. So it is very practical book for those who want to make a research in history of philosophy, or to understand, for example, ontological proof of God, ontologism. Okay? Well, on page 12, you have the criticism of that. I go to the bottom, number 4. The argument was rejected by many others. St. Thomas, for example. What is the quotation of St. Thomas? Page 12. Granted that everyone understands by the word God, it signifies something then which nothing greater can be imagined, and nothing can be thought above God. Nevertheless, it does not follow that, and that thought does not lead us to you understand that what the word signify exists actually, but only that it exists mentally. No, I can think about a mountain. Everybody can think about a mountain of gold, no? You can think about that. You can imagine that. You can see a mountain that is gold. In 90% of the community, you have no more problem. No? Everything. No? But it's not a reality. We cannot pass from the thought of a thing, the dream of a thing, the imagination of a thing, to conclude to the reality of a thing. No? Nor can it be argued logically that this actually exists unless it be admitted that there exists something that which nothing greater can be imagined. And this is precisely what is not admitted by those who hold that God does not exist. So then, even if you say that to an atheist knows what is God. You know that God is the supposed powerful being above everything, creator. He has the idea of God. An atheist has an idea of God. Otherwise, he would not be able to fight God. Huh? But he has the idea, but he does not accept his existence. So we cannot pass from the order of thinking, the logical order, or order of mathematics, for example, to the reality. I give you an example that happened 2 years ago. You remember for the World Final Cup, football final cup in Brazil. Huh? The engineer prepared a beautiful stadium. Huh? And suddenly what happened? A few days before, a part fall down. It was beautiful on the paper. It's the same for a plane. When they build a new plane, I saw recently, the new 1,000 traveler in the future Boeing 790, something like that. No? It's a Delta plane with 1,000 people. And that, not only it is on the paper, no, it exists in the reality. The prototype exists. We see that, we see it. You know? But as long as it is not put into metal, into reality, the paper is only a thought. So it is not because it is beautiful on the paper, on the plan, the architect, that the reality exists. Now I go to next paragraph, page 13. So in fact, the essential of the criticism, it is number 5, verse 13, the difficulty which ontological argument is, it's passing from the ideal order to the real order. Okay? So retain that is enough. No, what is essentially the proof is to think, if I think about a being having all perfection, that being must exist. And secondly, what is the weakness of that reasoning? We cannot pass from the logical order to the reality. Okay? So now, next paragraph, general character of the argument. This chapter 3, is a kind of introduction to the many proof of the existence of God. And the argument of St. Thomas starts from 5 facts. Every proof starts from the facts. Don't forget, we cannot know God except through our senses. You know, I don't speak about vision or revelation, supernatural. I don't speak about the intuition God gives to someone to know Him without sense experience. I don't speak about that. That is theology. Okay? I speak only about human knowledge of God. Our human knowledge of God must pass through our senses, through facts. What are the facts? First, motion. The facts of motion. Change. The order of efficient causality. The contingent, the possible contingent. the grade of perfection. For example, a flea has not the same perfection as a bird, and a bird has not the same perfection as a man, you know, etc. And finally, the finality. We see in the word a kind of finality. Things are for something. For example, some plants are for the nourishment of the body, other plants are for healing the body, other plants are for poisoning the body. You know, everything has a reason, not only at the beginning as being caused by someone, but for a reason, a finality. What is the fact? So that are the facts. And we start from the facts. Well, I come back now to logic. When we study logic, we start that logic is a reasoning made with 3 propositions. You remember that? And the fact is in the mind. Remember that? The fact is in the mind. Why? Because the major apply to the fact a general principle. It's a general principle. In the case of our study of God is the principle of causality or sufficient reason. Okay. And the facts are the many facts we saw on the order in the word, contingency, etc. Okay? And from that, we arrive to the conclusion that there must be a cause. And that cause must not be cause. Well, that is the structure. And I built that on page 14. If you look at page 14, you have the structure of every proof of God is there. We start from the fact of experience, and we have the subject which is united with the middle term. And the minor, we have the middle term which is united with the predicate in the major. Or remember, when we study usually major, minor, conclusion. Okay? And we saw that M, and the best is the first mode. That is the structure of the first figure of syllogism. Now, if you go there, it's exactly the same, except the minor is the first. Why is the first? Because we start from a fact. And we try to understand the fact. And to understand the fact, we go to the major. And the middle term explaining everything will be the principle of causality. That must be a cause. Must be a cause. United the general principle to the facts. To the fact. There are many facts. So you can read that by yourself, you know. For example, being non-caused by themselves must be, the verb, caused by another being. It's the fact that I see, if I see, for example, I see that, that plate here and with wet linen, that is a fact. If the plate is here, and if the linen is wet, there must be a cause for that, a reason for that, someone who did that, and why it is there. Well, that is the fact. Okay? Secondly, now, the major, the general principle. What is that? Anything caused by another being, or by whatever intrinsic principle, must be caused by the first cause. Well, of course, here we jump many proofs. Here we get the essential. That means finally, if something exists, there is the cause there. We cannot go to the infinite. We arrive finally to a first cause. Oh, that is we cannot say that now. We cannot prove that now. With that, when we study proof by proof, we see that we cannot go infinity. For example, I have a father. My father has a father. My grandfather has a father. Okay, we go to Adam. Adam has no father. they must arrive to a first, no? Because even if we have infinity of in the series, you have 10 people, we have 10 million people, we have 10 billion people. The first, if it is the same as the rest of the series, does not explain the existence of the series by itself. Because everyone depends on the other. Finally, we must arrive to a one who is outside of the series, and that is God. Well, that is the summary of all the rest. So we have to spend about 4 or 5 hours only on that. But that is the structure. And if you go to the next page, here I did the same, but instead of taking in general, I took the 5 proof of St. Thomas. So we start from 5 facts. 5 facts, or 5 effects. If P, then if P, then Q. So we start from Q, from the effects. We try to go to the cause. So the 5 effects St. Thomas speak about. 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion. Secondly, caused existences. Possible. Greater perfection, etc. 5. Require, each one require a cause of motion, a cause of existence, of cause of, etc. So everyone require a cause. The 5 require a cause. Okay? Now, that is the fact. Now, what is that cause? So we say the principle and nothing exists without being first cause. But we can have an infinity of grandfather, father, 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 that does explain why the first exists. There must be a reason for that. So we have the 5 proof, and must be, all that must be an uncause and perfect cause of all others. Conclusion, the effect, the subject, S, a subject, must be cause. So that is the structure. And after that, we study one by one. Now, to introduce you to the study of the proof of St. Thomas, I give you some... I skipped one thing, I forgot. Excuse me, page 17. Can you go to page 17? 17. No, I did not skip. I thought I skipped.
We still on the page 15.
We are at page 15.
Yeah.
Okay. And 16, okay. But 16, the other argument, we spoke about that. And I want to say only a word about the text of Mr. Hall here. You know, I think it's important before beginning to study the proof. He quotes, we quote, the intellectual arguments for the existence of God are necessary of somewhat dry and speculative nature. When we study the ontological, metaphysical argument, they are dry. The argument will prove that God exists, but they will not present God vividly as a real living person. For example, the first mover. In French, it's worse, we say the first martyr. So we make joke with that, huh? Unfortunately. Students make joke with that. God is le premier moteur. So moteur, so moteur, the first, in English it's better, first mover. Huh? Mover, okay? Man does not live only the pure intellect alone. So what he longs for is concrete reality. Now, this is precisely the purpose of religious instinct. Well, what we have to say here, when we speak about the proof of the existence of God, we must be attentive that to prove first attain our intellect. Our relation of God is not only with our intellect. We cannot reduce our relation of God to the fact we know He exists. And in fact, the knowledge of the existence of God in any countries, in any culture, and lead the people to practice we call a religion. A religion, it is not only I know that God exists, but because I know that He exists, I have to have some relation with Him. Offer sacrifice, pray to Him, adore Him, worship Him, etc. That in every culture. But the first is to know He exists. And when we know He exists, we don't stop at our intellect. And it is the reason why, for many people, the strongest proof of the existence of God are not metaphysical. They are moral proof. The moral proof, for example, the proof of Kant. St. Thomas used the same thing. Okay. The necessity for justice, for example, the need for justice. So the number 4.4, natural theology and religion, I spoke about that. Metaphysics is unemotional and objective, and religion is a personal relation. So when you study the proof of the existence of God, put that in that context. Of course, it is a philosophical research, but normally it should not stop there. Suppose I know there is a danger, suppose I know intellectually that there is a danger, I will stay there, work quietly, I will do nothing. No, I will do something. If I know the presence of a friend, of a relative, I will say, oh, he's there? Oh, my mother is there? Oh, okay, he's there. No, I have a relation. In fact, knowledge and the intellect go to the will. The knowledge of God should lead the people to a relation of love, adoration, thanksgiving, prayer, and that is called religion. Religion, okay? So now I go. What we know to the existence to the proof. We know first that God exists, and after that, in the subsequent chapter, we try to understand from the existence of God what are His attributes. One of the most important at the beginning is to know He exists. Because that changes. If God exists or He does not exist, it's completely different. My life will change completely. Okay? So we can know God from reason, we can know God also from faith. That means God can reveal to me through the Bible or through the Quran or through another book or personal revelation in the history. We saw that in many religions. But even there, even in religion, in act of religion, it is a virtuous. It is a virtue. Virtue. Religion is a virtue. Is a virtue, a part of justice. Leading, controlling, indicating us how to have a relation with God or the gods or the goddess, and that is religion in general. So it is a virtue, part of virtue of justice to practice that kind of religion. But that virtue is founded through the intellect. I cannot practice any virtue without using my reason. That means there is no act of faith without the participation of the human reason. I already spoke about that. You remember the agnostic, what they say? They say, I don't know if God exists. I know God exists only through faith. When they say that, they destroy religion. They put out of religion every kind of reason. No, even religion, even my ancestors were pagan. They adored the sun, they were reasonable when they did that. They have an intellectual reason for that. They were not stupid. Maybe they make a mistake, because we know when we reason, minor, major, we can make mistake. But the fact, they have a relation with the gods or with God, they expressed their intellect. That they were intelligent. Yes, Father.
Father, is the etymology of religion relation?
Yes, religere means to link.
Oh, to link?
To link, yeah. Legere, link together. Okay. I go now to the text I give you. I give you a first text of St. Thomas. Excusez, no, Father Reginald Garrigou Lagrange. Well, Father Lagrange is Dominican, and he he tried to express in modern words the theory of St. Thomas, the 5 proof of the existence of God. So I gave you the 5 ways of St. Thomas. That is taken from the Summa itself. It is the text of the Summa. I gave you the same thing after transform in different ways. It is page 20. But what I want to comment this morning, I will not use that, because you will use that at every proof we study, okay? That means every time we study, we should come back to that text of St. Thomas, because it is the starting point for every proof. But I go to chapter 3, page 29. The synthesis of St. Thomas' demonstration by Reginald Garrigou-Lagrange. You have that, I will work on that the rest of the class. It is a very good presentation of 29. Synthesis of St. Thomas' demonstration by Reginald Garrigou-Lagrange. Everybody found that? Okay. So we work on that now. Father Lagrange present first a general proof, like I did for here, the general presentation. And first idea is that the greater cannot proceed from the less. In fact, it is an application of the principle of causality. We cannot give what we don't possess. If you have no money, you cannot pay your gas at the gas station. You have to have money. We don't go with. If we ignore the subject, you cannot answer the question. This principle, there is one formula upon which every other principle is based. In fact, all the principle causality. The principle of causality, we say nothing exists without being produced by a being before existing, etc. That being who exists before, for example, the man who did produce this desk, he is the cause of this desk as a desk, not as being, as the form of a desk. He does not created the wood, but he put it to the wood a form. So he was able to do that because he possessed the form in his mind. I cannot produce something if I have no idea what is the thing. We cannot ask, for example, Leonardo da Vinci to explain you how functions a computer, because in his time there was no computer. Okay? But we can ask him to explain anything he was able to explain. It's the same. We cannot ask St. Thomas of Aquinas to explain the theory of the teaching of biology about conception. He was ignorant of that. But we can ask that from a student who studied biology. So that is expressed in 5 ways. First, becoming, change, becoming, motion, depend on being, and that being must be already actualized. If something is becoming, what is becoming? Becoming is the present participle of doing the action of being made, becoming. So for something that is becoming, there must be somebody to push that. For example, if I see a ball rolling on the floor, I see the ball, I will think, who kicked the ball? Suppose during the class I am teaching, suddenly I see a ball on the floor, rolling, passing. Hey, who put that the ball does not come without a push, somebody who push that. Thank you. You see that? Okay, so the becoming imply a being which is determined. You remember act? Act is a determination, a perfection. In fact, what is becoming? Becoming, it is in potency. And if something in potency is moving, it must move by something that is in act in regard of that potency. That's common sense. Secondly, something conditioned depends on something which is unconditioned. If the thing is conditioned itself, it must be explained by another. Okay? Contingent being. What is the word contingent? That means happen to exist. If something happened to exist, that means it did not exist before. And if it exists now, it depends on a necessary being. So contingent means non-necessary. And if the something is contingent, exists in a contingent way, that means there must be a necessary being. Here we have the essential of all the proof. The essential is there. The rest, it is to put flesh on that. Huh? That is the skeleton. An imperfect, composite, multiple being depend on what is perfect, simple, and one. For example, look at your body. My body is made with many organs, quite different. My eyes are not my ear. My heart is not my lung. Huh? And my brain is not my foot. Huh? I hope. You know? And all that is one. So the multiple united must be explained by the principle of unity. Order, imperfect being must be explained by perfect being, or by being having that perfection. And finally, order in the world, order in any place, everywhere, imply an intelligent desire. When you arrive in Versailles, I hope one day you will visit Versailles. It's one of the marvels in the world, Versailles. You see this garden, huge, with trees in line, cut of the same height, very like soldier, you know, like British soldier. And see, all that is the fruit of an architect, Mr. Lemaitre. It is a garden, not made at random, but made by an intellect. As soon as there is, if I see a student with a paper, in the paper, there is square like that, immediately I will say that that was done by an intelligent being. Never your cat or your monkey can do that. It is order. Order express intelligence. So the principle, next paragraph, the principle of the first three proofs especially emphasize the fact that the world depends for its existence upon a cause. And the two last ones, imperfect and order, depend on the superiority of that cause. Because we'll see that the fact that something, the world is designed, he put in order, does mean that the world was created by God. I can put order in the thing that already exists. For example, your mother can prepare many cakes, many things for a party. But you arrive in the kitchen and you put the thing in order, in plates. That is, you did not do that, but you put the order. So that is the fact we see the last one, express the being is superior. It's not necessarily a cause, but as an intelligent being, he put order in something. Okay? So the summary, 1.5, a summary. These mean that then be summed up in the formula. The greater cannot produce the less. Only the higher grade of being can explain the lower. that is excessively important, especially for those who study biology. The theory of Darwin is here. Because they pretend that the higher is produced by the lower. The inorganic matter produces life. And that unintelligent life produces intelligent life. That is the materialistic approach. In fact, materialistic approach, they are obliged to deny the principle here, because they cannot accept a superior being because they are closed in their sphere of matter. So they must explain everything from inside and not from outside. Okay? So it cannot give what we don't possess. Common sense. Okay? If I don't possess life, I cannot give life. I can put here calcium, azote, iron, water, oxygen, everything constituting a bone. I don't have a bone. I don't have a chicken. Even I have all the elements to make a chicken. Life is different from matter. Okay? If we consider that life is superior to matter, sometimes the contrary in our culture, sometimes we consider matter superior to life. And one of the proof of that is abortion. Abortion, we prefer matter, material comfort, and we kill life. Okay? So we cannot accept, of course, the interpretation of materials. Okay, next page, next, paragraph 2. The general proof will have to be scientifically established by the 5 proofs. Through the general proof is itself somewhat vague. It becomes strong and convincing when united with the other. So, you know what Father Gary Lagrange says here? One proof alone is not strong enough. If you want to have a strong proof, put them together. In fact, when we study all the proof of the existence of God, we have a very strong reason to affirm that God exists. Together. So when I was a student, the teacher said, "Oh, study only one proof of the existence of God is enough for your examination." No. Sister, don't laugh. No, it's okay. To pass the examination, they can see one proof. But to satisfy my intellect with the intellect of others, I must unite with them. It is the same thing. You can study the human body and say, "Oh, one marvelous work is the stomach." The stomach is a mirror. Another is, "Oh, the heart, oh." Another is, kidney, oh. But put that all together. Together, they work together. Your brain works with your foot. That is the marvel. We have to put that together. And the harmony. And in fact, what is the source of beauty is the harmony. Okay? I go to the text here. A case of natural knowledge of God. We have here a concrete case of what the theologian teach about the natural knowledge of God. Natural. Here there is a quotation from Schieben, in German. He says that although the existence of God needs to be demonstrated, it does not follow that its entity is merely the result of scientific proof, one of conscious reflection, based on our own research or teaching of others, nor does it follow that this certainty is due to scientific accuracy of the proof. On the contrary, what is important? On the contrary, that is very, very important. The proof requires so that anyone may arrive to a complete certainty is so easy and so clear that no one scarcely perceives the logical process which involves. That means it must be very clear. In fact, we should arrive from a scientific knowledge to an affirmation, to a knowledge of God that is apparently easy and clear. And when we do that, what we are doing, we are affirming the quality of any virtue, any habit. Any habit must be easy, we can be something easy, in an easy way, rapidly. So, we should arrive to the proof of the existence of God. Of course, we use science, but in a way that it is easy to express, and so everybody can understand. But the best example for me is the Pope Francis. Pope Francis is he is very deep theologian, but his knowledge in science, he is a master in chemistry, he has a doctorate in theology, he has a specialty in literature, he's very well informed. But when he speaks to the people, he says the great teaching in a simple way. It is easy. That is what one is. In fact, we should arrive to assimilate those proofs based on scientific approach in such a way that it is easy after that to speak with people about that. You cannot explain to the people everything you will study here. But we should arrive to be able to use that in such a way people will take benefit of your knowledge, and you can explain that in an easy way, in a clear way, to confirm many times what they already know. I told you the proof and the tests of God are not to give you faith. Most of the time it is to confirm you, to say, I'm not stupid to believe in God. I have a good reason to believe in God, because we have already faith. If you don't have faith, it can be a way to interest you to study who is God. But that not give you automatically the answer. Okay, so the dimension, in fact, of the 5 proof is, I will say, is apologetic dimension. It is to defend faith, to defend reason. Why people, intelligent people, they believe in God? They are not stupid. Prove that. And you prove that through the proof of the existence of God. But we cannot affirm. I can affirm with great. I will ask Saint Thomas to forgive me, because I will say, Saint Thomas, your proof never gave faith.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Who can give faith?
The Heavenly Father.
The Holy Spirit. God can use the proof of Saint Thomas, but the proof in themselves cannot provoke faith. Spiritual, I speak not about human faith, I speak about spiritual faith. Like miracle. Miracle don't give faith, don't produce faith. And you have many proof of that in the gospel, no? Many proof. Jesus make miracle and they say, he does not by the devil. Or they say, he resurrected Lazarus. Everybody saw that. Okay, not only we will kill Jesus and we will kill Lazarus also. And they were witness to them. They saw him working out of the tomb. That is important. Sometimes, with apologetic, for me, is very limited. When I was young, 18 years old, in catechism, we study apologetic. How many people continue to believe?
Not much.
Apologetic is a way to confirm, is not a provoking. Let us recognize the limits of our science. The limits of philosophy, natural philosophy is great, but reason has some limit. Okay? The denial of the existence of God is contrary to nature and reason. Well, here it's interesting to read the text. Thus is verified the work of the Scripture. What is the Scripture? In fact, in the Scripture, the Roman, not for having they are pagan are children, not because they neglected to recognize God, but having violently suppressed the divine truth clearly made known by the mind of man. In fact, here I don't have to discuss that. We studied that with Mr. Frola. God won and tried. Man was not able to know God perfectly, why they were pagan, etc. It's not my job. But it is, when I believe in God as the unique cause of things, what I am doing, I am recognizing that God is the author of nature. I recognize that, and to deny God is to deny nature. To deny God is the reason why today man can do what he wants with nature. If there is no author to nature, you ask the master, huh? So to deny God, in fact, well, look at all those who deny God, all the regime who deny God, what they did, atrocities. Huh? Unfortunately, today, in the name of God, we commit also atrocities. And it said, incipiens. The incipiens is the one who is not wise. Huh? Sapiens, wise, incipiens. The incipiens, the man who is not wise, in corde suo, in his heart, says, non est Deus, does not exist. And in Florida, a few years ago, you remember, the atheists, they asked for a feast for atheism. You know that? And they went in court. And the judge, he said, yes, I agree with you. You will have the 1st of April. What is the 1st of April? April Fool Day. The day of the fool. Because in the Bible it is said, those who believe in God, don't believe in God are fools. So it is your day, the 1st of April. He has a great sense of humor. So how we can arrive to the knowledge of God? And at page 4, here Father Reginald, again, gave you some point. And the first he gave us, it is not, St. Thomas does not speak about that, it's life. Life, the fact of life. And the fact of life falls on my sense experience. Think about that, life. You look at the flower, for example. The flower grows, forms itself, give itself all this color, this form, is wonderful. Life, a baby. And when you look at a dead cat, a dead animal, you are sad. No? It is one of my first experience of death when I was young. He told that to you. My friend in his yard find a bird, and the bird was dead. And we saw a dead bird. Or usually we see always a bird in the air. I saw a dead bird. So we made a funeral for him. For it, we take a box. Because life is beautiful. Life is a fact we have to find a reason for. Why? So, as a fact, if living being exists today, there is life, is a fact. If life is superior to brute matter, to matter, it could not have evolved from brute matter. For to assert this will mean that the greater comes from the less. Or what amounts to the same, this will mean that being comes from nothing. Life is being, and being will come from non-being, non-life. It is contradictory to say that, it's absurd to say that life comes from non-life. Unfortunately, people continue to teach that. It's the teaching of many scientists today. Matter produces life. Therefore, the first being must have life. If the cause of the one who gives life must have life himself. So that means the cause of life cannot come from matter. It must come from a living being. Only life can give life. A dead horse cannot engender a young horse. Impossible. He is dead. Okay? So the first being must have life. This necessary conclusion becomes particularly evident to the senses. If we suppose that it is an established fact of positive science that the series of living beings has a beginning. That means, in science, we arrive today to affirm that there is a beginning. For example, we know that there is a beginning to human life. Nobody scientifically can affirm today human life exists forever. Human life exists only from some tick-tack in the history of the world. Huh? The world exists from billions of years, and men exist in maybe 3 million years. So that is a fact that life began. And if life began, there must be a beginner. There must be someone who produced that. You know? Okay? And we can, some philosophers say the world is eternal, matter is eternal. Even if matter is eternal, we saw that it must be depending on another. Life is the same, except life must come from a living being. Now I continue. The second fact is not only life, it is intelligent. You know what is interesting here? If you accept that the first cause is the cause of life, so the first cause must be a living being. It's not stressed in the proof of St. Thomas, the first mover, the first contact. But here, interesting. If there is life, and cause of life must be life itself.
Can you? Okay.
Must be life. Must be life. It must not receive that life from another, because if you receive the life from another, you have to, to continue. You cannot go infinitely. Okay? Secondly, intelligence, a fact of experience. If there is such thing in the world as intelligence and knowledge, if intelligence is superior to brute matter, to vegetative and sensitive life, cat and dog, of course somebody will say, oh no, man, my dog is on the same level as a person, human society. But we don't accept that. Okay. Someone, you are ready to sacrifice life to make money. You have suppose you have a choice between to save. Suppose there is a fire in your house, not you. Somebody in your room. You have a box with diamonds, with watches, with jewels, and you have a baby. What the one or what have you to save? Absolutely, the baby. For us. But somebody, they were tempted to save the safe. It is what exactly people do when they abort. They want to save money, to save comfort, and they sacrifice life. They are also stupid as the man during a fire. He can save a baby, we can save his box of diamonds, So we have to recognize that life is superior. Recognize that all that organized things imply an intelligent being. That intelligence is superior to all the rest. We cannot put on the same level. In fact, here we have to recognize there is a hierarchy of perfection. Hierarchy of perfection. An animal is superior to a plant because they have sentient knowledge. Yes. And the plant is superior to a stone, because the plant is living, the stone is not living. There is a hierarchy. And finally, we have an intelligent being. And that intelligent being is superior, should be superior, not always. You know what is drunkenness? Drunkenness, according to the old catechism, is a vice that makes man like an animal. In fact, degrade man. Why we lost our intelligence? The usage of our, we cannot use our intellect. We become like a beast. So continue. It must the most domesticated of animals can never be trained so as to grasp the principle of sufficient reason or the principle of moral law. Therefore, intelligence could never have evolved from this lower grade of being. Intelligence is not coming from plant, is not coming from animal. Even the most apparently intelligent animal is not man. Man is superior to all that. It cannot come. The higher cannot come from the lower. If you can if you can calculate in algebra, but you should calculate 1 plus 1 in arithmetic. But the algebra is not arithmetic, which explains algebra. But algebra implies arithmetic. That means the superior implies the inferior, contain the inferior, but does not come from the inferior. That means my intellect is superior to the rest of the creation. It is the reason why man is the dominion over all things. You know, it is not everybody accept that. Many people, they say we are on the same level as animals. There is no distinction. It's only accidental distinction. They are materialist. Materialist. And we live in that world. Don't forget, we live in a materialistic world. So, it's, you know, about 4 or 5 years ago, there were statistics. I noted that because it was too striking for me. It was about the money consecrated to feed pets and to feed little babies, 1 to 3 years old. $9 billion were consecrated to babies. 9 billion. For pets, 24 billion. Almost 3 times higher for pets than for babies. And we don't want to have babies because it's too expensive. Okay, so, number 7.4. The intellectuality of the first being cannot be like ours contingent. So, the first being must be a living. And that living is intelligent. And that living is not like us. I mean, it's not like the contingent being. So he must exist by himself, you know. What is the characteristic of God? What makes God totally apart us? Totally apart. God shared with us his being. He shared with us his intellect. He shared with us his love, his virtues, etc. But only one thing God cannot share. He cannot share. He cannot. What is? Exist by himself. A-C-E-T. A-C. Ab-C, by himself. And we exist ab-alio, by another. By another. God share everything except that. And that makes us God totally apart from us. He is the first being necessary. God is necessary. You know, the more I teach philosophy, God, for me, the most important is that here. God exists by himself. God is the unique, absolutely necessary being. All the rest depend on him. He depends on another. He doesn't, on no other.
So God is a necessary being, Father?
Yes, then he cannot not exist. And nothing can exist without him. He is intelligent, he is life, but he is life by himself. He is intelligent by himself. He is existing by himself. That is 7.5. This means that the first being is of necessity intelligent. You know, some religion, they consider God not as a personal being. As an energy, for example, the New Age. God is not a person. God is an energy. You know? Or God is everything, pantheism. No, God is a person, absolutely autonomous, existing by itself, intelligent and perfect in his the source of life. God is a person. He's not only a power, he's not only an energy. Because God is a person, it's personal, we can have a relation. The relation is between two intelligent beings. A personal relation. I don't speak of a relation with your dog or with the piano. A relation with two personal beings implied both are intelligent. And God is life, God is intelligence. And another page 5, the consequence of that, why there is order in the world. It is a proof used by St. Thomas, because God is intelligent. Yep. Number 8, the first being must be the supreme intellect in possession of a first and unchangeable truth. So God, if God is intelligent, what is the object of the intellect? The object of the intellect is the truth. You remember that? We said that in Philosophy of Man, no? The object is the truth. What is the object of the will?
The good.
The good. So the object of God is infinitely the infinite truth, and the object of the will is infinitely love. That is interesting. He applied that to the gospel. Jesus said, "I am the truth." He doesn't say, "I am true." I am the truth. Okay. Now, God is a relation with the good. And what is the virtue making us in relation with the good? You remember that virtue? Justice.
Justice.
So God is infinitely just. And the justice of God. And because He's infinitely just, use, the word use, it means right, means law. He is the divine legislator. He is the divine legislator because His will is in relation with the good. He can indicate us how we can attain the good. He is the legislator. Why is the legislator? Because he is the author of nature. That is very. That text of Father Reginald, it's wonderful. It can be used by you in the future. It's a very good text here. So there must be a supreme legislator. And that is the moral proof. We study with Kant, we study with St. Thomas. There is an order, a moral order, a moral obligation. There must be a moral legislator. We call that natural law, and natural law coming from eternal law. And that eternal law is not only on the paper, it is a person. It is the infinitely good, God Himself. And God is love. Because the good is the object of love. When I do a good action, I will that, I love that. Okay. So the necessity of a moral just, a good and holy being. So next page, it is the divine legislator. I spoke about that. Well, I read that slowly. It is not very abstract, but it is very, very deep. And it is another approach of the proof of St. Thomas. When we study St. Thomas, you will see, I like that approach. It is not mechanical, it is not dry, it is close to us. We speak about truth, we speak about life, we speak about justice, and from that, and finally, the last page, page 35, you have the conclusion. There must be a first being at the same time with life, intelligence, supreme truth, absolute justice, perfect holiness. What is holiness? Holy means complete. Integral. One. I thought it's interesting here. Here we have truth, we have one, and we have integral. What is integral? It is unum, one. And you have the three dimensions of being in metaphysics. The one, the true, and the good. Yeah. Because God is perfect being. God is the perfect truth, the perfect good, and the perfect one, the perfect unity. He is unique. Because He is unique, He must be all, complete, perfect. And what is whole in English also? Made holy. I explained that to you, I think. Whole, complete, perfect. Because He is one, He is all, He is apart. Transcendent, He is, in Spanish, santo, sanctus in Latin, separate, transcendent, apart. Okay? Application now, it is in fact application of the principle of causality. I finish by that. That is very, very important, no? That page. No? First, this conclusion is based on the principle that the greater cannot produce that from the less, which in turn is merely a formulation of the principle of causality, quod non est assez, that means that does not exist by itself, as a value, it must exist by another. Okay? Secondly, the lower grade of being can be explained only by the higher grade of being. It is the summary of the chapter. And those principles will be the principle used in the proof of the existence of God. You remember the minor, the major, and the conclusion. And the minor, it gives the fact, and the major gives the general principle. That here, the two general principles will apply continually in the proof of the existence of God, two principles. In fact, it is application of the principle of causality. I consider the simplest of material elements, etc., can be explained by an idea. In fact, everything exists, must be explained also by an end. In here, that paragraph is interesting because they speak about the final end. I leave the simplest of material element, atom, crystal, far from being the principle of thing, can be explained only by an idea of type or final end. That means thing exists, that must be explained not only by the cause who did that, who make that, but the reason why they exist. In fact, in everything there is an efficient cause and a finite cause. Exists in an infinite being, of course. I don't speak about God. No? Okay? The display of them, of intelligent design, can have been caused only by an intelligent design. Here, you have all the elements also to criticize evolution, materialistic evolutionism, because the problem is essentially the problem of recognizing causality or not, recognizing there is superior being or not, that the superior only can furnish what is inferior. The lower being cannot produce a superior being. Okay, so next class, probably it will be under the slope. So I will try to give the course. If you can come, otherwise you will not on the internet.